Yay!
So today the tables have turned and you, Giselle, are interviewing me. You've got your questions.
Yes, I feel like I've stepped into my podcast hosting shoes.
Yes. How does it
Um,
feel?
I mean, it feels like a lot of pressure, I'm not going to lie. I just never saw this journey happening for me. And here we are. I'm really excited. I feel like you've got such a incredible story. And I think people just need to hear more about it.
Thanks. Yeah, it was funny after when we recorded the tarot episode, and after you were like, yeah, I just got this download. I feel like you should talk about you and maybe get someone to ask you questions. And I was like, do you want to do that then?
Yeah, it's like, oh no. Yeah, I'm really excited. And
Yay.
I guess like to kick things off, I just would love to know, the woman behind Wolf Sister and the woman
Yeah.
behind the podcast. And I think it's always such an interesting question when someone says, who are you? And, the natural responses that we give to that. So yeah, I'd love to know how you would answer that question.
I feel like, if I'm really honest, this year has felt a bit like an identity crisis.
Mm.
So when you say like, who are you? I'm like, I feel like I'm working it out in that way. But the official line
The company
is the
policy.
company that, yeah, they're like what you'll find on the website, or maybe not. But so I am, yeah, like people will know, like I'm a crystal healer, tarot reader, and I write books. I've written The Crystal Code and Luna, and I've got this podcast, Another Phase, and what I'm really passionate about, one of the things I am 100% sure and know unwaveringly, is that I love to support people to turn up the volume to their intuition, whether it's through online workshops or moon ceremonies, and also like in my one-to-one sessions. Like I'm kind of like, I'll work with the cards, for example, and do a tarot reading, but ultimately it's really acknowledging that that person has the answers. It's really kind of that little nudge that they keep getting. It's giving that a high five or passing the baton down, finally letting it have the baton so that that person can kind of run the distance with what they need to do and get unstuck. But I think, yeah, I don't know, I've been on such a journey, and I never expected to be where I am now. Like my whole thing was initially to just kind of heal myself and be happy with myself, and then just sharing what I love and what I'm interested in, and then it's just kind of grown and blossomed and kind of, yeah, brought me to where I am now, which is really incredible, and I'm really grateful for it. And I'm probably very grateful that I didn't know that this was where I'd end up being, because that imposter syndrome would have totally kind of like locked me in a room and not let me do it. So yeah, like I'm glad that I kind of didn't know, and I could just kind of like go with the flow.
I love that. And I think, that idea of not wanting to know how, the purpose and the path unfolds is so important. And I think so interesting. I think we can tend to really seek and chase that. And if we were kind of given this sign, 20 years ago, it's what you'd be doing, you might be like, oh, absolutely not. I don't want to do that. So with that said, I guess, did you feel like in any of your childhood experiences that you had any signs or clues that this is where you would eventually be, or more so just even the things that you loved doing when you were a child, so that really inner child sense? Were there any witchy stuff that happened then?
One thing, there's something rustling.
Maybe my headphones?
Maybe. I don't know if it's your hair on your headphones or your earrings on your headphones.
Let me take my earrings off. Let's try that and see.
Yeah, I think that's better.
Okay.
You know, when you can hear it. It's like
the little rustles.
Yeah. What I was gonna say. Yeah, so childhood clues. I've always been into like witchy stuff as a child, like all my favorite books. I remember like being obsessed with this book called like Pongwiffy the Witch. And I remember like for Halloween once, like I had this board game. I think it was like this like a crystal ball with I think it had a person in it, and you'd wave your hand over it, had a sensor, and it would like tell you something. And I remember for like Halloween I'd be like walked around with this thing like offering to tell people's fortunes like with this game. I need to Google what that game was. It just reminded me. And yeah, like I'd always been interested in crystals as a child and kind of witchy things, and had imaginary friends and all of that, but I never thought that I would like do anything like this. And obviously the craft, and when I was a teenager, like using, like I would always, when I could, you know, when you can first start going into town on your own, like with an adult, I like would always go and like hang out in the kind of new age shop and like buy incense. And you remember all these like the sun and moon symbol things were like really popular like back then, like everything would be that, and the crystals and like jewelry. And so it's always been a thing for me, but I never thought that it was a thing, if you know what I mean. Like it was just something I was interested in, but never thought of it as a career. But it is funny, like I think there are so many clues when we look back to our childhood to where what we're interested in, and really I think what lights us up before anyone tells us what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing. I think there's so many clues there. And just being obsessed with kind of anything witchy and practical magic, or the, you know, like cliche, like practical magic. And
100%. That was, I mean, it's just so interesting because we spoke about our story before and how many similarities there were. And, you know, I spent so much of my childhood experiencing that and being obsessed with Sabrina and the craft. And
oh gosh,
being like, there's something about these folk that really resonates with me, and I'm not sure why. So it's interesting that we kind of have these little clues and symbols. We just don't know that we're going to fully land on that path. So did you have like a dream job when you were a child? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So how funny, like it's making me laugh because I'm doing this, and I with the podcast, and I was speaking to my podcast editor about something. We had like a meeting to kind of like go through some things with the podcast, and he was saying, I can't remember, it's about being like a journalist, and I was like, oh, I'm not a journalist. And he's like, well, you are really. And then it triggered this memory. I was like, oh yeah, like I used to want to be a journalist, you know, and I used to want to do PR, which is kind of like promotion, like which is what I do. There's so many different things. I wanted to be a photographer, like I wanted to be a vet. Well, I've got a cat.
I love
and luckily she's healthy, but you know, when like but it's been a marine biologist, but like I can just happily watch documentaries on Netflix, but all these different things. But I think like art, I wanted to be an artist, like something creative and with people and helping people.
I think that's so, when we think back to, you know, those dream jobs that we had when we were a child, what we wanted to be when we grew up, I think we forget that we don't really, because you're not, as you don't believe that you are like, you know, an artist or a journalist, you sometimes forget the ways that you are that. Because I think, you know, we see you as Wolf Sister and, you know, someone who does like sessions and workshops, but to do those workshops and those sessions, you need to promote your work. You have to write in a way that engages your audiences. You have to be creative and be an artist in the way that your website looks. Like you're all of those things, even if it's not the umbrella of what you are. And I think there's something really beautiful about that when we trace it back. And I guess like going on to that, I think I personally don't believe that, you know, you find your purpose. I always believe that you have these like multi-purpose purposes. I don't think anything's wasted. So if you have like careers, they'll always lead you to the next thing and ongoing. So did you have a life before Wolf Sister, and what did you do?
So in my past life, in this lifetime,
in this lifetime, in the past life,
I used to be a hairdresser, but also I struggled at school because I had lots of different things kind of like going on, and so I kind of like didn't really do my GCSEs. I just did it as a kind of, I did like I sat a few of like my favorite lessons, but just as a like my counselor was like, just do a couple as a kind of just show up, you know, just show up for yourself, do the things that you don't force yourself. So I fell into hairdressing because my mum was like, you're not going to just be sitting around, like you need to get a job. Like, so I ended up hairdressing, which I love, but I knew that wasn't my forever job. And like, in that time I learned how to do like nails, and I learned how to do makeup. So I used to do like beauty, like weddings like on the side, and photo shoots, and and it has to do waxing and photography, and I was always doing something on the side as well as hairdressing. And then but I think when I was hairdressing, it gave me so many skills, like being able to chat. I mean, I don't know, I think that's quite natural for me. That's probably why hairdressing was easy. But also I think being able to just connect with people from different walks of life, and yeah, like, and like I said, I totally agree with you. Like nothing is, like we're always where we're meant to be. Like nothing was a waste. And even there were times where I really kind of like, I had my spiritual awakening and was learning all of these spiritual practices, and I was like, oh my god, this is what I want to be doing all the time. I don't want to be here talking about someone's, like, I don't know, something that felt really superficial. And I felt really stuck at that time, because I was like, oh, I'm not meant to be here, I'm not meant to be here. But as soon as I kind of like surrendered into it and looked in, really shifted my perspective and looked at my job at the salon as like, hang on a minute, this is supporting me to pay to do the trainings without worrying about it. This is supporting me to build my confidence and do these things. This is supporting me to host events and not do it through financial fear, in a space of like, oh my god, like, you know, like I've got to pay, you know, like I hadn't quit my day job and then threw everything into all things Wool Sister. I was able to kind of really nurture the events that I was doing and invite people there, because like I wanted it and promoted it from a space of like, I'm doing this, like I'd love you there, like don't worry if you're not, instead of like, shit, I've quit my job, help me pay my bills. Like I don't want to go back there. I'm so grateful that that I really kind of trusted that I was where I needed to be, and took each thing for it, and it really just shifted things, I think, from that perspective.
I think it's so nice when, you know, we both have clients and our work relies on other people to never see those people as like we need them to be able to survive. And I think there can be so much lack that comes from that when you can only be of service to pay your bills, because it always means that you're showing up from such a different space. And I think we both have said this before, that we always recommend for like, you know, new practitioners or people who are in the healing space to keep that job as long as you can. As long as it's not, you know, really toxic, then it's going to help to support you to, you know, be of even deeper service when you do have people. So I really love that. And like, so what do you love most about being of service? And I guess because you've seen both spectrums of that, right? You've gone from being of service in like the beauty industry to being of service in, you know, wellness and spirituality. It's like, what kind of like gives you that tingle when you've had a client or you've done a workshop?
I think when people have their own realizations or something shifts for them and they open up to this whole new kind of landscape of maybe opportunities or seeing things that fundamentally gives them the keys back so that they can get in the driver's seat. I think that's what really kind of gives me a kick, where they're like, oh my god, I've had this idea and I'm going to do this now, you know, or they really kind of reached that little bit higher for themselves. And like I think that's the thing for me, giving people those opportunities or space or tools to have those realizations for themselves.
I think, you know, I think that's such a rare quality. I think we both, you know, we grew up engaging in so many books from, you know, gurus in quotation marks, and the message is always, you know, I have the answers for you, and I'm the only person who can teach you this or share this with you. And I think having this approach to the work that you do, that's very empowering and it's very, you know, person-centered in the way that you're just trying to help them to see deeper and to remember and to reawaken. I think there's so much magic in that. And I can imagine for your clients, it's so empowering to know that actually they've always had the answers. You're just helping them on their journey to finding that. So yeah, thank you for the work that you do. And I think, you know, when we think about the services that you offer, so, you know, tarot, crystal healing, energy healing, when we see those like umbrella labels, I'm sure for many people who are new to this work, they're like, I don't know what that means. So what do your clients usually come to you for? And what kind of happens in like a session?
So I think people come to me for like lots of different things, like whether it maybe they've just had a breakup, or they've been single for a long time. They're on the other end of the scale, they've been single for a long time, and they're like, when's it going to happen? Or what can I do to help that happen? Or also sometimes people are in that situation in a relationship where they've been with someone for a long time, and they're like, is this where I need to be? You know, like they're in that a kind of a growing pain phase in that relationship. But also people come to see me because they want to kind of like shift something. You know, they want to take their energy back, they want to take their power back, whether it's that they've been in a toxic work situation that's kind of crushed them, and they crush their confidence. It's a similar thing with, I think, how we are in work can be very reflective of how we are in our relationships. And like sometimes I think, I mean, I've got a few clients that I've seen where they've been in work situations that have been toxic, and they've kept themselves, they've stayed there because this dynamic with like them and their boss or their manager, like it's kind of like the good girl complex. They want to keep proving that, you know, they want to hold in that little bit longer, and it just ends up kind of being to their detriment. And after that, even though the red flags were there, again, like a relationship, and using kind of like healing practices to really cut those cords from those situations so they can plug back into their selves. And like you're saying, same thing with like my previous jobs, like everything happens for a reason. You know, there's something in every experience that has something to teach us about ourselves, and an opportunity for us to learn and do things differently. And when I have sessions with people, whether it's through tarot, I'm really using the cards to see the bigger picture for them, using the cards as a mirror and telling their story of like where they're at and where things can go, but also what they need to do first to get themselves unstuck. I think so many people associate the tarot with future prediction, but there's no point in predicting the future if you're stuck now, and there is things that you need to do now to open up to that potential future that you want. And what you're predicted might not actually be what you want, or it might be like, I can't remember if we discussed this whether this was just one of our chats or on maybe on like the first podcast that we recorded, but that might be based on like a limiting belief anyway. And I want people to kind of really believe that they can have it all and open up to things that they didn't think was possible, because I feel like I'm living proof of that. Like I used to work as a hairdresser, like I thought, I'm always going to never have enough money and never be happy and always be stuck and have my life determined by other people. You know, wouldn't be able to take a holiday when I wanted because it's always down to other, you know, like down to my boss, like, and all of these things. And it's like, oh my God, now like I get to choose these things. And I haven't had to do anything crazy. I haven't had to make any, you know, I've got sacrifices in terms of working like some crazy long hours. But I think that's just because I can get just a bit obsessive and really into what I'm doing. But yeah, I think that's what I want people to see. Like there's so much available to them, but often we kind of back ourselves into a corner and we think that that's it, or we think we're stuck and we don't think we have a choice. But when I work with the cards, it's really looking at like, hang on, what is the thing that's keeping you stuck? What is that fundamental belief? Because it can be so simple. Like we think that it's all of these other things that are going on, but it can be this, hang on, like this is what's out of balance. So if I just put my energy here but actually walk your talk and do that thing, that's what's going to shift things for you, and open up different doors. And then like when I'm doing energy healing, it's really kind of just creating space for people to feel what they need to feel and clear their energy and balance it, and kind of just, again, it's similar to working with the cards, but you're just working on a different level for that person. And I think that the difference between the two is for different people. I think some people want to talk about it and want to understand it, and I think with a healing treatment, people are just like, just do what you need to do.
It's like total receiving mode, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. And I think not enough people allow themselves to be in receiving mode like that, because with a reading they can see the cards, so there's something tangible there. But with a healing treatment, it's a feeling, so it can be so subtle. Even if they feel really great after, all of the things that kind of shift into place from having that treatment, they can be really subtle, and it might be the results, like in funny years, might not be the bigger, more profound, might not be obvious until a week later, 6 months later, or a year later. And sometimes they're so subtle that you don't even realize that thing. So I think a lot of people often go for the tarot because it's tangible, but yeah, I love it doing like healing treatments and just let that relaxation, and even with the events that I do with people, or the online events, that people will have experiences and after, I feel so clear, I feel so relaxed, oh my god, I've had the best night's sleep that I've ever had, you know. And it's just like, just giving yourself that 2 hours to yourself to do these practices can shift so much. And I think so many people don't realize that they can feel like that, that clarity, like and that sense of feeling supported. I think a lot of people don't know that exists until they experience it, or they experience it and then life happens and they forget, and they're like, oh yeah, that was nice, but it's like a bit like a dream.
Yeah, I think, you know, the word that I've really connected with this year, and the word that I've been, you know, showing a lot in my practices, is this idea of like spaciousness. And I think we're not really aware of how much we can create from that space, because we're just not used to, as you said, receiving. And, you know, I've had a session with you, which was divine. And I think, you know, as a practitioner, for me, it's always really hard to step into that box of receiving. And you know how much resistance I had to receive.
I'm just going to give you this, like, this code, book in.
Yeah,
when you're, it's there when you need it.
Like, you 100% had to like force feed me, because it just wasn't going to happen. But it was so beautiful just to be held without any expectation. And I think when we are doing hard work, of course, we're working our clients through something. And when you're receiving, you're just allowing the work to pass and move through them. And I think it's so great to open people up to just good old-fashioned receiving. So with that said, how do you receive? So I guess because you are space holding and you give so much in such a expansive way to so many people, how do you come back home to yourself outside of work? Like, what are your own personal spiritual practices and self-care practices?
So anyone that's listening to this and has been following me for a while, they'll know that my bread and butter, is that the right word, or staple, like meditation, like in the morning, and journaling, like most days, are like kind of like brushing my teeth. Like, I have to do them to feel good. When I don't, my head just gets foggy, and like it's different kind of like landscape for me. So I kind of don't feel like they are spiritual practices, but I just feel like they're like breathing. I don't know, breathing sounds really deep. Not breathing, but like, yeah, brushing my teeth. And I'm really into flotation tanks. So they're like these pods that you go in, and they're like sensory deprivation. So you lay in them, and then they turn the light off, and it's got loads of Epsom salt in it, so you float. And yes, I love that. I love to have massages, like to be in receiving mode. And this year I've really got into doing the couch to 5k. So I've been going out running and just being out in nature more, and reading, and just trying to be better with my boundaries and take more time for myself. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. And for me, like, traveling is a big thing, but this year, obviously, because we've had
a little pickle.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of straight things out. So so that's kind of like shifted, kind of really, again, I guess back to that identity crisis of like, what makes me me, what makes me happy, what recharges me. And yeah, like, I think for me, I had this realization, like I shared, it was the new moon in Libra the other day, and I shared a tarot spread, and I always do them on myself as well. And I just had these massive realizations of like what's out of balance for me. And I ended up booking a night in a hotel and stayed in London and went for a float tank, and then went to the Tate Modern the next day and had like a really lovely dinner. And I was like, oh my god, like, I was like, this just feels like me. You know, these are the things that I do. And like, again, outside of kind of like Tamara as wolf sister, Tamara as a tarot reader, Tamara as a healer, Tamara as an author, Tamara as a girlfriend or a friend, it was so nice. And I think it's important for me to have space where I have that distance.
I think that's such a nice way to put it. I think we put on all of these, I call them like little identity outfits. So it's like the version of us who is, you know, the girlfriend or the healer or the people who do things in the world. I mean, even just like our gender and our ethnicity, there are these identity outfits that we have. And when we take those outfits off, we're really confronted with that big old question of like, yeah, who am I?
Mm.
And who, you know, on that soul and that essence level. And I think it's just always subject to change, right? It's like every single year we kind of go in a bit more and we see like, oh, actually, I don't like this thing that I used to like.
Mm.
And I've grown so much and you've done all this work and like it just keeps changing and evolving. I think there's something really precious about not resisting that change and just seeing what feels good to you in the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. And when we're thinking about, so I know you are the ultimate moon hype girl, as I like to call
I
you.
love that.
And it's funny that you had the background in hairdressing, because I remember when I was younger, when I was one of the first like books I read on the moon,
Mm.
it said like the, you know, the phases to kind of get your hair cut and when to not get your hair cut.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like so obsessed with the moon. And I was like, my mom would always try to make to the hairdresser, like, actually, we can't go during this phase, so we'll have to reschedule that appointment. So I guess kind of like it just made me laugh, you know, the likeness between the moon and getting your hair cut.
Yeah.
So tell me about your lady friend, the moon. How did you become so obsessed with the moon? Because you wrote your book, Luna, all dedicated to harnessing the power of the moon.
Mm.
So yeah, just like tell me what fascinated you with the moon.
I think like everyone, I mean, who isn't
Yeah.
fascinated by the moon? It's like, whoa, look at that, is in space and we can see it from here.
Yeah.
And it, what we see changes throughout the month. Like who doesn't, like especially if you're on holiday and when you're chilled and you're just like, whoa, by the beach.
Mm.
But I think for me, I have always been like, for as long as I remember, always been interested in astrology. And when I really kind of started having my big spiritual awakening when I was about 28, I was reading more about astrology and learning more about the moon and observing how I felt at different times of the moon, being like, oh my god, like, of course it's a full moon, I feel like this, I can't sleep, or this is ended, and of course it's a full moon, like. And just having that awareness of things happening. And then I write about it in Luna, like in the introduction, like I was like living with a friend and we did this like moon ritual. I'd had like a really shit year, and we're like, let's leave that behind. We did this moon ritual together and we did this manifestation thing, and it's really simple, of just like writing a list of what we wanted to let go of, and then on a separate piece of paper writing a list of what we wanted to manifest. And then we like saged ourselves, like we used like white sage in the garden, like cleanse our energy, like burnt the list that we wanted to let go of, and like cleanse the list that we wanted to keep and put that somewhere safe. And then we did some like oracle cards for ourselves, and like the things that started to come through, like I've never been one for new Year's resolutions or anything like that, and the things that started to come through, you're like, oh my god, this has happened, like that's happened. And it just kind of made me like more aware of like the power of aligning with the moon and the intentions, and like how we feel with different phases of the moon. And for me, burnout has always been an issue for me, something that I've always had to, like, I've always kind of I think big people pleaser, what lots that I want to do, like all of it, like before they were big issues for me. So I'm learning, and I would always have a lot of change kind of going on around me. So working with the moon really helped me. It was interesting because at those times, like in my kind of like mid to late 20s, I was so drawn to amethyst and moonstone. And moonstone is like, amethyst is really powerful for like spiritual awakenings and letting go of addictions, and moonstone is really powerful for, again, like your intuition, but also your like understanding change and flowing with change. So I kind of, like it's helped me kind of like understand like where my energy is at different times, and where not to push and when to kind of pull. And again, understanding that, and again through the menstrual cycle of like those different phases that we have within us and how our energy changes, it's just been a big game changer for me. You know, like burnout isn't as an issue the way that it was before. I used to feel exhausted like all of the time when I was hairdressing, and especially when I was like hairdressing and doing all of my Wolf Sister stuff, because I was doing so much and trying to do everything, trying to keep everyone happy, and do like, yeah, just be a mega people pleaser. But learning to work with the moon, it's just started to understand like, well, this is when I feel good. Then this, like a bit like traffic lights. Green is go, like, yeah, do all the things, and like then you've got amber, and then you've got like red for stop, and it's understanding those different phases and times, and that's just helped me massively. You know, my life doesn't feel like a struggle in the way that it did before.
Yeah, I think, I think, both sides of the spectrum, because obviously, your menstrual cycle is so connected to the moon. But I think, for all people who bleed, we just didn't really know how to even harness that. And then on the other side of it with the moon, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so empowering when we all learn, or we are learning, how we are cyclical beings. So us pushing so hard and hustling every single week of the month is just not sustainable. And I think there's so much relief that comes from knowing that we don't have to be kind of going so hard all the time. And have you seen it has like a huge reduction in terms of that burnout piece for you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, like, I think after the book, after Luna came out, I very much felt burnt out, because but I think that's part of the process, because so much energy goes into finishing it, putting it out, promoting it. And I was super excited about it. So I wanted to, I wanted to talk about it, wanted to share it. So I very, very much felt that. But I think because I've worked with the moon and understand that phases, like I can tell see the kind of like the warning signs coming up. So I know when to kind of like push, like kind of take the foot off the gas and put the brakes on, and park up and chill out. I'm not saying that comes easily, because it's hard, because when you're in that gear of go, 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 it's like shifting gears. Sometimes you have to grind it till you find it. But I'm more aware of it. And also I think because I've started to, because I know how that works, like I trust that what happens when I rest, like I trust, whereas before I would come from this place of like, gotta keep going, like if I don't do all the things, like this is gonna fail, or something, like I'm not gonna be able to afford my mortgage or whatever. But I've learned really from working with the phase of the moon that when I rest, good things happen. Not when I burn out. When I burn out, it just blocks me and I feel crap. I don't make the best decisions. It impacts my relationships, and just how I feel about myself. But as soon as I take them and I've to step away and recharge and get in receiving mode and just slow down, I fundamentally just feel better in myself, and then I have like the best ideas, like the good things always come through for me, or opportunity, like, because as soon as I loosen my grip, opportunities come through. So now I know that happens when I do let go. It's easier for me to switch off. But I think for a lot of people, and for myself, like before, I didn't know that exists, because I think we're so programmed to be on the go. So we don't know. We're programmed to be like, keep going, good things happen. Like if you want good things to happen, you've got to work really hard for them. But we never trust that what we've done is enough. So we keep going and keep going and keep going. So we don't have proof of what happens when we take time off. We think, because we haven't necessarily experienced it, worst case scenario, I'm gonna have time off, no one's gonna book in with me, or people are gonna, I don't know, like people are gonna forget about me, or as soon as I drop the ball, like everything's just gonna fall apart. And it just doesn't work like that. Like it doesn't work like that, especially if you've put the especially if you burn out, because it means you put the graft in anyway, so you're definitely due a break. But like I said, I think it's the proof that helps us trust. And so working with the moon, it's like it's given me that framework to like just lean in and think, okay, I'm just gonna get curious. And I like taught Lunar Vision, which is like was a free 5-day like course on like the moon phases, and every day was like a practice to lean into that energy, because I think when we know what we're supposed to do at different times, it's easier to do it and have that framework. But like I said, often we're just like we get stuck in one gear.
I think that's so important for people to hear that the author of the Moon book is doing the work. I do think you read a book by someone who lives and breathes this stuff, and you have this assumption that, well, she's just got all of her shit together, she doesn't have to ever worry or do any work, she's just like elevated beyond her human self. And I think it's ultimately there's such humility in being like, oh, you only live in your best life because you do the work.
Yeah.
Like you are still following the moon phases every single month
Mm.
because you know what happens when you do that and when you honor it. And there's not this moment, and I don't think we should want to find this moment where we can have this, pseudo enlightenment where we're just like, yeah, the work is done now. Like, no, it's not going to be done.
Yeah.
And I think it's so great to hear that you are still very much working through your own teachings and your own practices every single day. That's why you were able to, to teach it in such an authentic way, because you do that yourself and you honor that. So it's
Yeah.
always good to hear the truth
Yeah,
behind the story.
I think it's so important though. Like for me, I don't know, honesty is like one of my policies that I try and be as like upfront with things as possible. Like even, I think, what was it? I was doing tarot vision, which was like it was like a tarot thing in April. And one of the cards was about your relationships. And on that day, I'd had an argument with my boyfriend. So I was like, I do not want to pull that card and ask how I can
No thanks.
improve my relationship with him. And one of like my guy mates saw that and he's like, you shouldn't be saying that on social media. You shouldn't be telling people about your relationship. And I was like, I don't want people to think that my life is perfect, that my relationship, just because I I believe that I manifested my boyfriend through doing moon ritual, doing a full moon ritual and working with crystals. I don't want people to think that you manifest these things and your life is perfect. I don't want people to think that you do this and that's, like you said, that end goal is like ease and grace and never an issue. Like we're always growing, we're always evolving. And he's like, oh yeah, like I get that. And I think that was one of the things I think I wanted to come through with the podcast as well, these honest conversations with people that are doing all of these different things from different walks of life. And it's like we're all just figuring it out as we go along. And I think I speak to lots of people that, and I know that I was very similar. When you start opening up spiritually, you want to read all the books, you want to do all the things, you can put so much pressure on yourself, or you want to manifest that thing. So you're having all the healing, you're doing everything to open up to that. But sometimes that's not, like we don't, again, that's back into that stuck in one gear and not moving with kind of like what you need with each moment. But we're all just figuring it out, and having times where we have got our shit together and we're like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Like that's part of the process. But also having that existential crisis of like, oh, like what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Where's my energy supposed to be?
Yeah,
that is all part of the process. When you're in that phase of like not knowing, or that void, or something's ended, that doesn't mean that you're wrong, or that's you're out of alignment. Like that it's what you it's what you do with that energy, and how you treat yourself, how you speak to yourself in those situations. And like I always say, I think you teach something similar, like when you're kind of like in those times of uncertainty, or even just as a daily practice, just check in with like what will support me today. Like what do I need today, and just putting one foot in front of the other. Like I know some people have like these visions of where they want to be in the future. I definitely don't have a year plan.
No, I don't even have like a week plan, babe. I feel like we're both so good at being like, whatever spirit wants me to do next, I guess I will do that. And I think there's, such power in that sometimes. I think it's great to, of course, I mean, we both definitely have intentions and
we have like
things we're always, manifesting. But I think in terms of, we don't really have attachment, right? I think we don't have attachment. I think we're both really good at surrendering and saying, you know what, spirit, like we've kind of made this commitment for you to be our co-pilot. So where we're going next, and just trusting implicitly that whatever that next point is going to be in our highest and greatest good.
I think that's what I was going to say. What was I going to say about that? It's like having have goals of what you want, but like you said, not having attachment. Because I'm like, in my ideal world that would happen, and I'd love to do this. But I think on reflection from past experience, like not getting what we want can either be like a stroke of luck, or it opens up to something else. And again, having that magic, having that an awareness of that happening, it releases that attachment, doesn't it? It's like, well, I know that actually if that doesn't work out, then maybe like that something else is gonna
I think it's just, I just really feel at the moment you let go of that attachment, that's exactly when the magic comes in. I think we have to kind of get to that place of it's like the biggest like secret to manifesting, isn't it? It's like you trust so much that you're going to get it. You don't have to keep an eye on it anymore.
Yeah.
You just know it's coming. And we spoke a bit, just a minute ago about this work, and spirituality is just a part of being human and how we can survive in this wild planet by having this practice to come back to. So I guess like what are your favorite like human things to do? So taking spirituality out of the conversation and just thinking about those just down and dirty human things. So like anything from watching Netflix to memes, like what really lights you up in that space? For no reason.
Well, I love hanging out with my friends, like just being with my mates. I love a good Netflix series. Like I love a good Netflix. For me, I know that I've watched something good because it makes me not want to watch anything again for a while, because I'm like, nothing can beat that.
I've had my fix now. I know.
It doesn't happen often, but when you have it, like once I've watched something good, like I had that with the latest series of Ozark. And what else is it? And I watched The Sinner. The Sinner. The Sinner. I don't know if I felt like that with The Sinner. The Sinner was good though. We talked about that before. And what was that other one? The Snowpiercer.
That was so good.
That was good. But definitely The Great that I'd watched, I think that was on Prime, and Ozark, like this year I've watched them and been like, oh, I don't want to watch anything else. And what else do I like just doing? Just like, I don't know, like love waking up next to my cat. Like when I stayed in the hotel the other day, I woke up and I was like, oh, like this is amazing, but like I feel bad I didn't miss my boyfriend as much as I missed my cat.
I also just think I'll never forget that you associated being a vet with having a cat. Like I'm pretty sure it's like my favorite Tamara quote of all time.
Yeah, I wanted to be a vet, but I haven't got a cat close enough.
So close, so close.
And what else? What other human things? I don't know, I just love baths. Like,
do you read a lot?
Yeah, I do. I go in and out of phases. Like I wish I had. I'm trying to make more time to read. That was one of my things. I was like, I haven't read anything just for me for like a while. So I'm reading Ghost at the moment by Dolly Alderton.
Oh yeah.
Her new book, so that's cool. But I have to like go through phases where I ban myself from buying books, because I'm like, oh yeah, but buy them, and then I don't read them, or they just pile up. So then I'm like, right, I can't buy any more books until I've read a chunk of this pile. So yeah, I do love reading.
And what kind of puts you into that flow space? Like when you look at your clock and it's like been 6 hours since you started a task, is that quite a lot of the things you do for work, or is it other things as well?
How do you mean?
I guess it's like, I think when I'm, for example, I love baking.
Okay.
So when I'm in the kitchen and we started baking at like 12, and then all of a sudden it's like 5 o'clock, and you just like lose all sense of time because you're just so consumed by being in that moment.
Yeah.
I guess they're like quite fleeting sometimes, just like finding things. But I know that there's been nights when I've texted you and just been like absolutely manic, and I feel like so much of your work, you kind of feel that sense of flow. Like how do you kind of describe that, or is there anything that you do that makes you feel in that state?
I think when I get a creative idea, so like sometimes like I don't know, like the last time I had it was like I just had this idea for like my Instagram, like just some like colors and fonts and different things and like pictures and putting it together. So and like when you're just in it and you just lose time, you're like, oh my god, I've just spent like loads of time just like doing that. So yeah, I get that a lot creatively. For me, it comes back to work a lot. I don't know if that's because I'm a workaholic or because I really like, I think also I love what I do, so the lines get so blurred, and I think I get to express myself through my work, so it's kind of a double-edged sword really. And like, not that I'm advocating for like working like loads and being like that, but I think it's just how it is for me, and how it is when you work for yourself as well, I think. But yeah, a lot of the time when I'm working or I'll have an idea for like something like an event, and then it's just as if it's downloaded and then like through me, and I'm like just writing it down. Like that's just when I kind of feel like time doesn't exist and I'm like in the flow. I wish I felt like that more about running.
I know, it's always like I think it's so true though. I think because for both of us, what we do is what lights us up in so many ways. So it's so easy to just be so consumed by it. And I think, you know, when I'm like tidying up my tarot cards at the end of the day, I'm like, this is my job.
Yeah.
This is wild. And,
Exactly.
you know, just wanting to stay in that space can be really nice sometimes. But yeah, 100%, if only running felt that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and I think for me, that's something I'm working on at the moment, just time management. Like we've been talking about this like on WhatsApp. Like, and for me, that's something that I'm really working on, and like trying to have boundaries, because I think also just because I'm working long hours doesn't mean that I'm being productive.
Yeah.
Like, but I think that if I actually kind of like balance my time more in the times that I am working, I would be more productive. So then I can do more things. If that makes sense. Like,
yeah, and
actually,
I think also, when we speak about spirituality and self-care, like there's always these really shiny, fun things, right? So we speak about, you know, rituals and ceremony and crystals, and actually things like boundaries and time management have the capacity to be so incredibly powerful. They're very unsexy, but boundaries are like, you know, the thing that can make so many changes in your life. Because as you said before, you know, when you have this feeling of being a people pleaser, because who doesn't feel like that, we forget how much we're giving and leaking our energy to people. And when we can reclaim that, there's like so much space that we have to create from. So it's really nice to prioritize those, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why I love doing tarot readings for myself.
Yeah.
Because it's like a check-in, and it's like, yeah, where is my energy leaking? And it's so much can be so much quicker to stop that leak, and just check in, because we can go into autopilot and we're doing these things and we just don't realize like what's going on around us, or what impact that's having. And for me, doing those tarot readings for myself, it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is where my energy's going. This is how I feel. Like this is what needs to change. And then it's so much easier to be like, okay, pivot then, say no to that. And I think for me, like over the years, like I have really been I'd say studying like how to say no, you know, like listening to podcasts and reading different things and having boundaries, and really kind of having ways of saying no that feel good, that don't make you feel guilty. Because I think for a lot of people, saying no makes you feel guilty. But something I've been coming back to is like, if I'm saying no, why am I saying yes to that thing if like maybe I haven't had an evening off for a while, you know, or a day off, or haven't been doing, like, haven't had that space for myself? Why? So it's an easier no, because it's like, hang on a minute, where am I in this? So, and knowing that actually, like we were saying earlier, like us, when you're holding space, like you've got to feel good. Like you've got, like, not you, like you can have off days, but ideally you'd be looking after yourself. Like, again, for me it's really important, like I've got to be walking my talk. I can't be saying something to someone if I'm not doing it myself. And I'm sure people, like, if they've been listening to this podcast for a while, they'll know I'll give them advice and I'll be like, oh God, I need to do that. Like, and when I say that, when I catch it, I honestly make that happen. Rather than, it's not like do as I say, not as I do. Like, again, I'm human. We do things without realizing, but as soon as we realize, that's the opportunity to do things differently. So yeah, I think it's like important to kind of just feel into those things.
Yeah, absolutely. There were some things that you said that really made me think about, you know, that triple goddess energy. So like the transitions through like Maiden, Mother, and Crone. And how would you say that they kind of linked into your book writing process? Because I guess that when we think about, you know, that Mother energy, we're like birthing something and bringing something out into the world. It's like, how do you go about, you know, writing your books? Do you have like time off? Do you like go to retreat somewhere? Like, how do you balance that process?
So how do I balance? I personally don't think for me, book writing isn't a balanced process. It's like, and it's kind of having that space to not censor yourself. Because I think that I was watching something, I can't remember if it was is it Seth Godin? Godin. He was on, I think maybe something with Marie Forleo, and he was saying like writer's block doesn't exist. If you can talk, you can write. And that's for me when I write. It's like, what would I say? What would I say in an like moon ceremony? What would I say to a client? How would I explain that to a friend? Or sometimes when I'm having a conversation, I'll be like, oh, 1 minute, like I've just got to write that down. As really having an awareness of like writing the way that we speak, because I think that just it's like conveying things in a better way. But for a lot of the time with writing, for me, I write better at night. So lots of like late nights and kind of like pushing through, and I always kind of like get this sweet spot, and you kind of like push through, and then you kind of like, oh, but like I'm getting tired now, kind of need to go to bed. So I think for me, it's with the balance piece, it's just like really feeling into, if I'm feeling blocked and stuck, it's probably because I'm tired and I've kind of gone past that sweet spot. And it's like I need to take a break, but then in the back of my mind I'm like, oh god, I've got a deadline, I've got all these thousands of words to write, got to get this out. So for me, I always, when I got my book deals, first book deal I was like, yeah, just had this vision of like a cabin in the woods and like, or going on this retreat, and actually I kind of thought, you know what, I'd rather have that for after. Because what's the point of being away and in a gorgeous place and you're like on your laptop writing, because it's not going to happen. Not if you're me anyway. It's not going to happen. So for me, it was kind of like with Luna, it's a lot easier because I think I felt more confident with my writing process. I had a writing process at that point, and I had booked a holiday, so I had 3 weeks in Bali, or like just over 3 weeks in Bali, to kind of as my reward to kind of like look forward to it and recharge. But I mean, as deadlines go, I almost hadn't got it all done, so I was literally on the flight while everyone's sleeping on like a 20-hour flight, like
frantically typing.
Like, gotta get this done, like just gotta get it finished. So, and I think if I wrote another book, I just feel more confident in like how that would be and how I want to write it. But yeah, I don't know. Personally, I don't know how balanced writing a book is, because it's like you've got that. Then for me at the time, then I've got my clients, I've got my events, writing a book, like they're all kind of full jobs, and also the behind the scenes side of running a business. So for me, like I said, it was, I wouldn't say it's balanced. Not to say that wouldn't be the case for someone else with better time management, maybe. But yeah.
And what is your sun, moon, and rising? I feel like it's so interesting to know. I feel like even if things like writing books or how we run our businesses, I feel it's always like these little clues wrapped up in our astrology. So what are yours, and do you resonate with yours?
So it's really interesting you say that, because yesterday I shared this post of like we were talking about it, and Aries, it was like Aries and Leo like talking over each other, like you can't get words in edgeways with them, and like I'd posted that and it's like, oh yeah, and I'm trying to do better, and like so many people were like, oh my god, that's me. But so many people were messaging me with not just their sun sign, but their rising and their moon sign. I was like, how cool that so many more people are becoming aware that they're not just their sun sign. Like I love that. And I am an Aries sun, and I'm a Libra rising, and my moon is in Aquarius. So I always, with Aries, I think a lot of the time with an Aries, the preconception of an Aries is like someone that's very kind of like driven, quite fierce, quite impatient, angry, and like I'm pretty
pretty chill.
I'm pretty chill. Like if I'm hangry, different story. But I'm pretty chill. But I think in the sense of like headstrong and like initiating things and wanting, like that fire energy of wanting to make things happen, like 100%. Like I resonate that, and I love being in it, like Aries, like in that sense of like, yeah, like go get her, like make stuff happen, and kind of like leading the way. I was like, I almost kind of shut myself down from saying that, but like, yeah, leading the way. And my Aquarius moon, when I learned more about that just like blew my mind, because like our sun sign is like kind of like how we're seen by other people and our ego, but our moon sign is how we are emotionally, and like what makes us feel safe and secure, and what nourishes us, and what makes us like, and how we express love as well, how we see love and how we express love. So when I started to understand what my moon sign was, and then with Aquarius I was like, oh my god, like totally, I love my space. Like I am a little bit like, oh, isn't that quirky? But like I think my relationship, like my boyfriend, is, his sun is in Aquarius actually, but I think our relationship is I don't know, I'm making it sound like it's weirder than what it is, but
Love it.
it is like, I mean, people are like, what's going on there?
What's
like,
happening in that house?
Like it's not like, yeah, exactly, it's not like like that. But I think, I don't know, I think that our relationships might maybe a bit different to like traditional relationships. Does that make sense? Like I think because I guess I'm quite career driven, like as a lot of women are, but also for me, I think my need for individuality is really important, and my space. So like, for example, like I like to go, he's really happy for me to go away on my own, and I love going away on my own, not because I don't want it, and like I love going away with him as well, but I know a lot of people in relationships, they wouldn't do things separately. So that's what I mean by like that spaciousness and different. Like a lot of people, like if they had holidays, all of their holiday would be used up doing things together. But for us, like we do a lot of like things separately, and that really works for us. So in my Aquarius moon of just kind of like thinking about other people, you know, that kind of humanitarian aspect of kind of and I think for me that around like my friends are like my family. So I've got a big kind of like network of friends from different walks of different times of my life, and then my Libra rising, which is actually really interesting because like my mum, I don't know, I keep getting told different birth times, so I wasn't sure if I was Libra rising or Scorpio rising, but I did a rectification. So you can add all these fill out this stuff, you can do it with an astrologer or do like it for free on, you can Google it and find out what it is. But it is always better to have an astrologer, but luckily I've got astrologer friends, so I did it and then just bounced it off off of them. But Libra, right, so Scorpio, I was like, yeah, that makes sense because of the work that I do and the mysticism and all of that, but I have also got a lot of other planets in Scorpio. But the Libra rising, I think actually I was like, yeah, that does make sense because like that's what tempers the fiery Aries, because the Libra is like about the people, like the Aries is kind of like me and the Libra is about us. So I think that's what balances me out. And like the Libra thing, I think just that visual aspect, like Libra is ruled by Venus, kind of like the planet of like for love and beauty, and I think aesthetic and beauty and creativity is very important to Libra. And I think for me, like that comes through, like I'm very specific with how I want things to look visually. If I'm creating something or like my website, like, or my Instagram grid, like it's all, there's something there. And I think even my friend Kimberly, who's like, her thing is like star sign style, I did a reading with her like years ago, and she was like saying about it, and she's like, your aesthetic comes through that Libra rising, like you can see that through the colors that you use and all of that. So yeah, I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I think that balance is so great. And I think because I'm also a fire sun, and I'm Sagittarius sun and Virgo rising, I'm like, yeah, my Virgo risings helps me to just like keep my stuff together. Like sometimes a fire needs a little controlling. So I think it's so nice to have that balance between those different elements across across the major three. So get into our quick fire round. Don't you love that I've come to your podcast with these little franchises now that I've created?
Yeah, I love it. Bring it on. So one word for the quick fires.
You can have 1 to 3.
Okay.
Unless you have like something really magical to say, then maybe you can have like a whole sentence.
Okay.
We'll see what wants to come through. So the first one, what tarot card are you vibing with at the moment?
What am I vibing with at the moment?
The tarot card.
Oh yeah, what did I just say?
What are you vibing with at the moment?
Oh yeah, what tarot card am I vibing with at the moment? The one that I want to be vibing with, or the one that keeps coming up for me?
The one that keeps coming up for you. We know there's a very big difference there.
So what came up for me with my reading the other day? So I got the King of Wands and I got the Sun, which were very indicative of like get back into your creative mode and like do the things that light you up and like recharge, like what gives you energy. But also like in the center of that spread was the Hanged Man or Hanged Being of like feeling stuck and needing a shift of perspective. So like they're the kind of that, oh god, that was way longer than 1 or 2
it's
words.
okay, it was really special, so
okay,
like
special. So yeah, okay. So yeah, that like they're like the Hanged Being, I think just actually that opened up so much for me as well. Like for me, I always recommend to people like journal on the cards, don't just look it up, journal it, really dive in deep. What does that mean to you? And yeah, just get ready for some lightning bolt moments.
Exciting. What crystal are you vibing with at the moment?
What crystal? Sorry, I'm saving my words. Do you know what? I actually haven't really been drawn to crystals like lately, but I'm saying that and I've got, you know, when you're like not consciously, but they are like everywhere, but next to my bed, like right next to my bed, I have got black obsidian. So this is that black obsidian is what I'm vibing with.
Love that. It's such a powerful one.
Yeah.
Is there a quote that you live by?
Be the change you want to see in the world.
It's got me really emotional. It's so sweet. I think it's just the way you said it. I love that. Such a good one. And what was the last book you read?
Well, I'm reading Ghosts at the moment. And what was the last book I read? I think it was, what's on my I've been reading a book about what one was I reading that one? I've had like, you know, when you go through a phase of like having a few different ones on the go. But I was like reading one about like the sacred sex rites of Ishtar. I don't know if I'd recommend it though, but
it was cool anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like I've got to the end, so like I think that's the last book that I finished. But yeah.
And if you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Sushi?
Oh.
Is that a meal, or do you mean like breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
No, I think that's a meal. Yeah, it's a meal.
Yeah.
Yes, I think sushi would be forever forever food.
I don't know. Now I'm like, oh, I don't know.
You've second guessed yourself now, haven't you?
Yeah, purely because when I lived in Ibiza, I worked at a sushi restaurant, and by the end of it, I was like,
I'm done.
I'm done. Like I was like, I love it. This is heaven. Like eating it all day, every day. And then I was like, nah. So I'm like, oh shit, should I have said that sushi? But sushi. I love sushi. So
I love that. Well, thanks, Tamara, for having me on your podcast, interviewing you. It'd be really fun if I just hijacked your podcast. And like just logged you out. It is now called Another Phase with Giselle.
The hijack. I thank you so much for the questions. They've been brilliant. It's been fun. It's been really fun being on the other side of the mic. I don't know if that's all right how you'd say it, but yeah, I mean I love talking to you always anyway, so it's been fun, like because they're just all questions that I wouldn't have thought of. I love how different people think of different things. I
think people will be so excited to hear your story.
Yeah.